Hello.
Hello, Alex.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are things?
Things are good. Thank you.
Hi, Boyan.
Hey, Boyan.
Hey, Grant. What's up? Hi, Alex.
Hello.
I wonder, Alex, I feel like I'm getting extra feedback from you, from your audio today.
Okay. I've muted. I'll see if I can fix that.
Boyan, is Oktoberfest over?
Yeah, survived.
You survived. That's good news.
Hello.
Andy.
Hey.
Just waiting until 9:01. See if anyone else hops on before we get started. All right. So I see Arturo is not here. He left the first note, so I'll just verbalize. Oh, we do have Katie. Hello, Katie.
Hi.
So yeah, the first note was left was from Arturo. We're talking about exit criteria updates from each of the DRIs. So anyone here, feel free to start filling in yours if you can, please. But I'll start by verbalizing Arturo's. So he shared that under create learning paths and content to contribute to the API, he started compiling a list of GraphQL training videos. So I think that's pretty cool. I was looking through that list last week. He's asking if everyone could please let him know if there are any other resources that he's missing from that list for REST or GraphQL on the issue. Before next meeting, I will review what training resources are provided by other companies. So doing a full comparison for our API state of the art in the industry issue, but in this case, focusing on training resources and learning paths. Any quick comments on that point before I move to the next one? Okay, so my check-in item, I shared that I've published the internal API user survey. So for team members within GitLab developing APIs, I've published that survey, shared in a number of channels, and our engineering and review update. So we have 28 responses so far. I'd like to keep pushing on this and getting, a little more of a representative sample from internal members. So if you know of any teams, have any personal connections, if you can be sharing this around, that would be really helpful. Anyone else catching up on the recording, please share with your teams. I think the data that we're getting is actually pretty interesting. Getting a really good sense of some of the key challenges our teams are dealing with. So that's going to help us to dig in deeper on those items and explore areas that we can really focus for our team. And yeah, if there's anything, any other areas, any other locations you think would be helpful for me to post this, I'll also take feedback here and see if I can get a little more visibility onto the survey. Any ideas from the team here? Okay, no thoughts. So if you have any ideas, please let me know. Any other updates that the team can share before I move to the next item? I think, Andy, you were most recently working on our automated API documentation. Is there anything you can share as far as how things are going there?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can give a little status update. So yeah, I was looking into this, and this then it suddenly became or got a lot of attention because this was apparently important for the FedRAMP project. And I think the reason for this is because we have a API fuzzing dust scanner, which not really an idea what this is doing, but it can use this automated documentation to scan our API, and this seems to be important. So I prioritize this a bit, and we now have a rake task that can generate the Open API documentation. And we just now, so there's an epic, I can try to find and link it. And this epic has a list of issues, and for each issue, or each issue is for one API endpoint. And now we're basically working through all these issues and looking at each endpoint, see if we can add it to the documentation or if it needs some improvements. And then we add it to the documentation. And the idea is that we, by end of 15.7, so the next milestone, the idea is that we have like a 75% complete Open API documentation. There's probably, it can probably be improved for quality, but at least it will be kind of complete, which is pretty cool. I didn't expect this to go that fast. Yeah, so there's a lot of things happened there.
Awesome. Yeah, that's exciting from my end. I think that's really cool. I'm looking forward to seeing this in practice.
Yeah, me too. I was following along with that issue, and then suddenly there was a flurry of activity there, and things just started to happen, as you said. So that actually reminded me there were a couple of things that I was thinking about in terms of that whole automation process. So these are obviously iterative things that we can do over time, and I'm just thinking aloud at the moment. But so I know on the GraphQL side, we have a number of tests in place for the documentation component or the description components of the GraphQL, thinking about things like implementing the same kind of tests for this side of things, simple things like making sure that all descriptions end with a period, things like that. We can obviously start working on adding those kind of things in future. I know that it's absolutely not in the scope for what we're trying to achieve in the next couple of milestones, but to make sure that we do address these kind of things going forward, I was wondering if maybe I should put together an issue or something to list the kind of things that maybe we can implement from that side in future for future iterations. Because we have done a bit of work on improving our REST API style guide, but it's very much with the focus being on the markdown component of it, whereas this is obviously a different system or method of doing it. So yeah, so I was just thinking about that because now with the improvements that have happened in this area, I'm wondering if we should even bother going back and fixing our existing markdown documentation. That was the other point I was thinking about. If it's worth doing that, or if we should rather start iterating on improving on the automated documentation going forward, because I was thinking about, are we going to have these two systems in place for a while, the old handcrafted ones and the new automated docs? So those were just things swirling around in my head, and I haven't really articulated them into any kind of issue or anything yet, but if you have any thoughts on that, I can maybe put them into an issue so long.
Yeah, I think that would be great. So the first point about having tests to make sure the format is right, I think that's a great idea. And like I said, probably not add tests now, but it would be nice to have some rules in place that we can work on that. Sean from our team, who's in testing automation, he already asked me about how we can test this, and I didn't really have an idea so far. But I think those are good points, and I think it's worth noting them. Probably the first thing we want to test is if the if the Open API documentation is up to date, like when a new MR comes in with changes in the code, is it really reflected in the Open API documentation?
Yeah.
And then, but next we can, add tests for periods or something like this. And about Markdown and Open API, what I had in mind was that we maybe can use the Open API, the automated documentation, to generate the Markdown documentation. But I'm not sure what should be the source of truth. I think for now, at the moment, probably Markdown is better documented, better written, everything than the auto-generated. So maybe I think Markdown is probably still the single source of truth, and maybe we can copy from Markdown to the automated documentation. But yeah, it's not really like probably need to think about this a little bit more. It would be nice if we try to not keep both systems at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess at some point we need to, switch to one, or just switch to one as the authority on our API documentation. It's just a question of when, and then how much effort we put into keeping the two in sync in the meantime. Because I'm pretty sure that those descriptions in the Ruby files, I doubt technical writers have had much influence there, or have edited those.
Probably.
Or I have no idea what state those descriptions are in, to be honest. I looked at a couple of them and I thought they could use an edit, probably.
Right. Yeah. I think for most of them we can probably copy what we already have in Markdown, because they pretty much describe the same thing. So I think that will make sense.
Yeah, that would make sense. And it's more likely that the Markdown has been maybe kept up to date, or at least been reviewed regularly.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it was just nice to chat about it a bit. I can think about next steps.
Yeah, those are good thoughts. And this is what I think is most exciting about this, is that we will be able to generate a Markdown documentation from Open API, that we have all things automated and all things in one place. That will be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think an issue on that, Katie, could be helpful to think about what could we leverage from the automated docs, and then we could start diving in from there. So I think it's worth having an issue.
Yeah, I'll work on that. Cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else on the call? Maybe Alex, do you have any updates as DRI?
Yeah, so and Martin Kepler has said that he doesn't have the time to make progress on performance testing for GraphQL and REST. So we're deciding how to make progress there. I suggested two options, as I mentioned on the issue with Arturo today. As we decide how much, basically, are we going to go forwards with the small and with what we have now and iterate, or are we going to do a larger item of work in order to verify that this works for all use cases first? One of those things will be chosen in the next few days.
Okay, perfect. Any comments, questions there?
From myself, or from other people?
Oh, all of the above, I guess.
So I think, I think it's reasonably low risk to proceed with what we currently have, because we're just replacing an existing endpoint that's already implemented. It's already implemented by GraphQL underneath. So we're not really. I would be very surprised if performance is going to be impacted by what we currently have. So that might be a more iterative way to proceed, and so I think we should probably consider then things like how we get to monitor performance and things going forwards. It brings in a bunch of code that if we decide in the future we don't want for all the rest of our stuff, that could be a bit of bit of a thing, but I think if we want to make progress on this at all, that's probably the most iterative way to proceed, because then we can start sort of, it would be easier to start testing on existing endpoints with something that's actually in production. Yeah,
Right.
That's
Okay.
something we can discuss in the issue.
Agreed. Any comments from the rest of the team while we're here? Okay. Any other DRI updates? Were there any others from your end, Katie? On maybe you mentioned roughly the style guide improvements and such. So I don't know if is there still work being done there?
A little bit. I think at this point, as I briefly mentioned, we're hesitant to go back and fix up too much of our existing documentation because I think it might not be worth the effort to do that at this point. So I'm thinking more like just focusing on the style guide update and how that can be used going forward for our open API documentation. Thinking that should be the next steps. Because I know previously we discussed, just fixing up all of our markdown documentation as maybe, I don't know, like a hackathon thing, for example, that could be good for community contributors. But I'm wondering if it's worth the effort now to do that, especially if a lot of those fixes are markdown fixes that would be fixed by automation anyway going forward.
Right. Yeah, so maybe that issue we were talking about you creating is the next step towards this.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I just need to think about what to put in it.
Yeah, I do also like this idea of trying to use some type of like a hackathon style day for, or days like the Foundations team has used for pajamas to attack some of these iterative updates. So maybe thinking through how we could leverage something like that would be useful.
Yeah.
Okay, I think everyone's shared an update. Boyan, I don't think you have a DRI item at this time, right?
No, I don't have.
Okay. Well, the last item I had is just kind of pulling back. I know we had a discussion on what was it, recently, September 18th or something. We talked about the cadence and adjusting maybe the date time of this call to Monday, Wednesday, or Thursday. And I just haven't gotten to that yet. So we'll probably work on that before the next several meetings. I do have some PTO coming up, but we'll be working on fitting this in, making the change here soon. So yeah, if anyone has any concerns with that, let me know beforehand. But probably we'll work on that here this week. And that's all that we have in the notes. Any other updates before we end, or we can end a little early? Okay, I know we're missing a number of people on the call today. So if you're joining in on the recording, if you could please share updates on your DRI items in the notes, and yeah, feel free to add any other items and let us know in the docs. Yeah, I think that covers it for today. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a good week, everyone.
Bye.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.